Before you listen any further, let me ask you something. When was the last time you allowed yourself to hope without immediately preparing for disappointment? When was the last time you stood still long enough to admit how tired you are of waiting, how heavy it feels to carry unanswered prayers quietly, how often you've smiled while feeling overlooked inside? I see you. I see the weight you don't talk about. I see the nights when you told yourself you wouldn't expect anything anymore because expecting felt too dangerous. And yet, even in those moments, something in you kept listening. Something in you kept the door unlocked. You have been walking through your days doing what needs to be done, showing up where you're required, holding yourself together in ways few people notice. You learned how to be strong without being asked how you're really doing. You learned how to quiet your own questions so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. You learned how to pray without words, how to sigh instead of speak, how to trust me even when you didn't feel close to me. And still, you wondered if anything was actually moving, if anything you whispered into the dark had truly been heard. Hear me now. Silence has never meant absence. Waiting has never meant neglect. There are movements that happen beyond your sight, arrangements made outside your understanding, paths aligned while you are simply trying to survive another day. You assumed that because nothing changed around you, nothing was changing at all. But there are things I do quietly, deliberately, carefully, so carefully, that if you saw them too soon, you would misinterpret them as delay rather than mercy. I know you have questioned whether you missed your moment, whether you prayed too late, whether you asked for the wrong thing, or whether you simply weren't chosen. Those thoughts did not come from me. I have watched you blame yourself for timing that was never yours to control. I have watched you lower your expectations not because you lacked faith, but because you were protecting your heart from breaking again. And I did not turn away from you in those moments. I leaned closer. Something has already been set in motion. Not because you forced it, not because you figured something out, not because you finally said the perfect prayer, but because the time came. Because certain pieces could now meet without harming you. Because what is approaching required you to become steadier, wiser, softer in the right places, stronger in the unseen ones. You thought you were just enduring. You were being prepared. I know how long it has felt. I know how often you checked the door of your life and saw nothing but the same view staring back at you. The same routines, the same concerns, the same unanswered questions. And yet, even when you told yourself not to expect anything, your heart listened for footsteps. You didn't realize it, but you never truly stopped believing. Your belief simply learned how to whisper instead of shout. Listen carefully now. This is not about pressure. This is not about urgency meant to scare you. This is not about proving your worth or your faith. This is about awareness. There are moments when change does not arrive with noise, but with timing so precise it feels sudden. There are answers that do not announce themselves from a distance, but appear at the threshold of your ordinary life. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are standing closer to a turning point than you realize, even if today looks like every other day. Remain open. Remain honest. Remain gentle with your own heart. What is coming does not require you to strive. It requires you to recognize. Stay here with me. This is only the beginning. You keep thinking of the door as something physical, something dramatic, wood and hinges, a loud knock, a moment that announces itself clearly so you won't miss it. But the door I am speaking of has always been deeper than that. It is the threshold between who you have been and who you are becoming. It is the quiet line between endurance and release, between surviving and finally stepping forward. You have stood at this door many times without realizing it, wondering why nothing seemed to open, wondering why every attempt felt like pushing against something unmoving. The door represents moments you didn't recognize when they arrived because you were exhausted, distracted, or afraid. It represents opportunities you once prayed for with intensity, then stopped mentioning because time passed and life demanded your attention elsewhere. You didn't stop caring. You learned how to live with unanswered questions. You learned how to walk past the door without touching the handle because touching it reminded you of how many times before you had hoped, only to feel let down. But hear me clearly now. This door is not locked. It never was. What kept it closed was not denial and not refusal, but protection. There are doors that open too early and wound the heart. There are answers that arrive before faith is strong enough to hold them. I have not withheld anything out of indifference. I have waited because I love you enough to care about what happens after the door opens, not just the moment it does. You have mistaken waiting for rejection. You told yourself that if it were meant to happen, it would have happened by now. You assumed timing was evidence of worth. That thought did not come from me. Timing is not a verdict on your value. It is an act of care. Some doors must wait until you no longer believe that what comes through them will define your worth. Some thresholds only open when you can walk through them without losing yourself. This door is connected to prayers you barely remember praying. The ones whispered in desperation, the ones spoken through tears, the ones you released because holding onto them hurt too much. You thought letting go meant those prayers no longer mattered, but releasing something into my hands has never meant it disappears. It means it is held more securely than you could ever hold it yourself. You wonder why this door feels important without fully understanding why. That is because it carries alignment, not just change. When it opens, it will not simply add something new to your life. It will make sense of things that once felt disconnected. It will reframe past confusion. It will explain why certain paths closed, why certain people left, why certain plans dissolved even when you tried to save them. I know you have grown cautious. You've learned how to manage expectations, how to protect your heart by telling yourself you don't really want much anymore. You say you're fine, that you've adjusted, that you're content, and in many ways you are. But contentment does not cancel calling. Peace does not erase promise. You can be grateful for where you are and still be standing at a door meant to open. The door is not a test. It is not waiting for you to be perfect, fearless, or endlessly patient. It is responding to readiness you don't fully see in yourself yet. Readiness does not mean having no fear. It means being willing to trust me, even if fear whispers. It means being open without demanding guarantees. It means choosing to believe that what comes next is not designed to break you. When this door opens, it will feel natural, not forced. You will recognize it not by chaos, but by clarity. There will be a quiet certainty beneath the surprise, a sense of alignment that steadies you instead of overwhelming you. And you will realize that the door you feared touching was never meant to trap you. It was meant to lead you home to a version of your life that fits more honestly than the one you've been carrying. Stay attentive, not anxious. Stay faithful, not strained. The door has always been part of the plan, and you are closer to it now than you think. I want you to understand something you have struggled to accept. Delay is not denial, and silence is not distance. You have been measuring my presence by visible movement, by outcomes you can point to, by changes that happen quickly enough to reassure you. When those changes didn't come, you assumed I had stepped back, or that you had somehow stepped out of alignment. But there are seasons where I work beneath the surface, where movement is real even when it is hidden from you. You have lived in the tension of asking, then waiting, then wondering if you should stop asking altogether. You told yourself that maybe expecting less would hurt less. You convinced yourself that lowering hope was maturity, that detachment was wisdom. But I saw the cost of that strategy. I saw how it kept you functioning, but not fully alive, faithful but guarded, obedient but quietly aching. You didn't lose faith. You learned how to brace yourself against disappointment. There were moments when you questioned whether I heard you at all. You replayed prayers in your mind, wondering if you said something wrong, if you asked for too much, if you waited too long. You examined your past, searching for mistakes that might explain the delay. But this is what I want you to hear now. What you are waiting for could not have arrived sooner, without costing you more than you were ready to give. The delay protected parts of you that were still healing. I did not slow things down to test your patience. I slowed them down to preserve your heart. You were still learning to trust without control, to hope without gripping tightly, to stand steady without needing constant reassurance. Had certain answers arrived when you first wanted them, you would have mistaken relief for peace and speed for alignment. I was not interested in giving you something quickly if it meant you would lose yourself in the process. You have thought that others moved ahead while you stood still. You watched doors open for people who seemed less careful, less prayerful, less prepared. And you wondered why you were the one waiting, why your path felt longer, quieter, more uncertain. But comparison distorts vision. You cannot see what others are being shaped for or what weight they will eventually carry. Your timing is not late, it is specific. There is a difference between being paused and being prepared. What felt like stagnation was refinement. What felt like repetition was reinforcement. I was strengthening foundations you could not yet see because what is coming requires steadiness more than speed. I was teaching you discernment so that when movement begins, you won't run simply because something looks promising. You will recognize what is truly meant for you. You asked why I didn't explain this sooner, why I allowed you to wrestle with doubt, to sit in uncertainty, to learn how to keep walking without clarity. The truth is, some understanding only settles after endurance has done its work. If I had explained everything at the beginning, you would have relied on explanation instead of trust. And trust is what carries you through doors explanation cannot. I know the nights you felt forgotten. I know the mornings you woke up already tired of hoping. I know the quiet resignation that crept in when you told yourself, maybe this is just how life is. But even then, I was near. I was watching how you kept choosing kindness, integrity, faithfulness, even when you felt unseen. That mattered more than you know. Now listen closely. The delay you resented is becoming the clarity you need. What once felt like lost time is about to make sense. You will see why certain things could not rush toward you. You will understand why waiting was not wasted. And when movement begins, and it will, you will move with peace instead of panic, confidence instead of desperation. Do not be ashamed of the doubts you carried. They did not disqualify you. They deepened you. You are not behind schedule. You are exactly where you need to be to receive what is approaching without fear. Stay with me. The waiting season is loosening its grip, and what comes next will meet you steadier than you have ever been. You keep imagining that when the moment arrives, it will come wrapped in familiarity. You expect the person to look like an answer you already recognize, to sound like something you have rehearsed in your mind, to arrive in a way that confirms what you have been hoping for all along. But I want to gently prepare you for this truth. The one who is coming may not fit the picture you've been carrying. And that does not make the moment less sacred. It makes it more precise. I say this because you have learned to associate blessing with predictability. You've learned to feel safe when things come through channels you understand, from people you already trust, in forms you can explain to others. But the way I move is not limited by your expectations. Sometimes I send help through unfamiliar voices. Sometimes I answer prayers through ordinary encounters. Sometimes I choose vessels you would have overlooked, simply because your heart is ready to see beyond appearances now. The person who is coming is not arriving to impress you. They are not coming to announce themselves as a solution or to convince you of their importance. They are coming because I sent them. That may sound simple, but simplicity often hides depth. You have been conditioned to think that divine moments must feel dramatic, overwhelming, unmistakably spiritual. But some of the most life-altering encounters begin quietly, almost casually, as if nothing significant is happening at all. You may be tempted to dismiss them at first. You may think, this doesn't look like what I asked for, or this can't be it. It's too small, too ordinary, too unexpected. That hesitation does not make you unfaithful. It makes you human. But I am asking you to stay open long enough to listen, long enough to sense what is beneath the surface. Not everything I send arrives with clarity immediately. Some things reveal their purpose as you walk with them, not before. This person carries something you need, but it may not be what you think you need. You have been focused on outcomes, on relief, on change you can measure. I am focused on alignment. The one who is coming may bring information, opportunity, connection, or confirmation. They may not stay long. They may not even realize the role they play in your life. But their presence will shift something, your direction, your understanding, your courage. Do not confuse unfamiliarity with danger. You have grown cautious for good reason. Past disappointments taught you to protect your heart, to question intentions, to hesitate before trusting again. I honor that wisdom. But discernment is not the same as fear. Discernment listens without rushing to judgment. Discernment stays present long enough to sense peace beneath uncertainty. That is what I am inviting you into now. I am not sending someone to replace me. I am not handing your future over to another human. I am simply reminding you that I often work through people because relationship is how I shape lives. You were never meant to walk every turning point alone. And sometimes the help you need does not come as rescue, but as recognition. Someone who sees something in you that you have stopped seeing in yourself. You will know this encounter is from me, not because it feels perfect, but because it feels purposeful. There will be a quiet resonance inside you, a sense that something has shifted even if you can't name it yet. It will not demand urgency or pressure. It will not ask you to abandon wisdom or values. It will invite you to consider, to pray, to reflect, and then to move when clarity comes. Be careful not to overlook the moment because it doesn't arrive the way you imagined. I have not changed my mind about you. I have not forgotten what I promised. I am simply choosing a path that protects you from disappointment while leading you toward growth. Stay present. Stay receptive. The one who is coming is part of the answer, but not the whole story. This is not about placing your hope in a person. It is about recognizing the way I weave answers into ordinary moments. Keep your heart open, your spirit attentive, and your judgment patient. What approaches your door may look simple, but it carries intention, and intention changes everything. You have been asking yourself whether you are truly ready, whether you would even recognize the moment if it arrived. You look at your own uncertainty and assume it disqualifies you. You see your lingering fears, your unanswered questions, your moments of hesitation, and you wonder if you are still missing something essential. But readiness is not the absence of weakness. It is the quiet strength that forms when you keep going even while unsure. And that strength has been forming in you for longer than you realize. Preparation rarely looks the way people expect it to. You imagined that being ready would feel like confidence without doubt, clarity without tension, faith without fatigue. Instead, preparation came disguised as endurance. It came as learning how to show up when motivation faded. It came as choosing integrity when no one was watching. It came as staying kind when bitterness would have been easier. You thought you were merely surviving a difficult season. You were being shaped by it. I have been preparing you in ways that could not be rushed. I have been teaching you how to listen instead of react, how to pause instead of panic, how to wait without losing yourself. There were lessons that could only be learned through repetition, through moments that felt ordinary and even frustrating. You wondered why the same challenges kept resurfacing. But each time they did, you responded with a little more wisdom, a little more patience, a little more self-awareness. That was not wasted time. That was refinement. You have also been learning discernment, even when you didn't call it that. You learned how to recognize what drains you and what strengthens you. You learned when to speak and when silence protects your peace. You learned that not every open door is meant for you, and not every closed door is rejection. These lessons were not dramatic, but they were essential. What is coming requires discernment more than enthusiasm, steadiness more than urgency. There were moments when you felt as though nothing about you was changing, when growth felt invisible. But growth does not always announce itself. Sometimes it reveals itself only when pressure comes and you respond differently than you once would have. Look back and notice how you handle disappointment now compared to before. Notice how you recover faster, how you question yourself less harshly, how you trust my nearness even when circumstances remain unclear. That is preparation made visible. You are also being prepared to receive without idolizing, to hold blessing without clinging, to accept help without losing humility, to step forward without believing that everything depends on you getting it right. These are quiet strengths, but they matter deeply. What is approaching is not meant to consume you or overwhelm you. It is meant to integrate into your life in a way that brings balance, not chaos. That requires an inner steadiness you have been developing all along. You may still feel unready. That feeling does not mean you are. It simply means you understand the weight of responsibility better than you used to. Naivety believes readiness means certainty. Wisdom knows readiness means trust. Trust that you can adapt. Trust that you can learn. Trust that you will not be abandoned mid-step. And I am not asking you to trust yourself alone. I am asking you to trust me with you. I know there are parts of you that still feel tender, parts that remember disappointment vividly. Those parts were not ignored during preparation, they were protected. I did not harden your heart to make you strong. I softened it while teaching it how to remain steady. That balance matters. You do not need to become someone else to receive what is coming. You only need to remain present as who you are becoming. So do not underestimate the quiet work that has been done in you. Do not dismiss your readiness simply because it feels humble rather than bold. You have been prepared not to rush, not to cling, not to fear, but to recognize. And recognition is the key. When the moment arrives, you will not meet it with panic or disbelief. You will meet it with a calm awareness that says, "This is different, this is aligned, this is not random." Stay gentle with yourself. Stay attentive without striving. You are more ready than you think, not because you are perfect, but because you are grounded. And that is exactly what this next step requires. I know the fear you carry, even when you don't name it. It is not loud, not dramatic. It lives quietly beneath your thoughts, surfacing when things begin to feel hopeful again. It whispers reminders of what went wrong before, of moments when you trusted and were disappointed, when you opened your heart and felt foolish for doing so. You have learned to keep that fear contained, manageable, but it has shaped how closely you stand to possibility. I see that, and I do not judge you for it. This fear is not a lack of faith. It is the residue of experience. You were hurt not because you were careless, but because you were sincere. You believed deeply, you invested honestly, and when things did not unfold the way you hoped, you carried the weight quietly. Over time, fear learned how to protect you by urging caution, by telling you not to lean too far forward, not to expect too much. It told you that hope was dangerous. But fear does not always tell the truth. It only tells the story from the moment of pain. You have been afraid of being disappointed again, afraid of misreading a moment, afraid of opening the door only to realize it leads nowhere. You worry that if you hope and it doesn't work out, the disappointment will feel heavier than before. That fear has kept you alert, but it has also kept you guarded. I'm not asking you to ignore it. I am asking you to stop letting it lead. Fear wants certainty before movement. It wants guarantees before trust. But faith does not grow through guarantees. It grows through presence. I am not calling you to reckless optimism. I am calling you to courageous openness. There is a difference. Courage does not deny risk. It chooses to move despite it, anchored in trust rather than outcome. I want you to understand something important. What is coming is not meant to reopen old wounds. It is not arriving to test how much you can endure. It is not designed to repeat the patterns that hurt you before. You are not stepping into the same situation with the same heart. You are different now. You see more clearly. You discern more wisely. You pause instead of rushing. The fear you carry does not have to disappear for you to move forward. It only has to stop controlling you. You are afraid of hoping again because hope feels vulnerable. It asks you to believe without proof, to lean into uncertainty, to allow anticipation to exist without immediately defending against it. But vulnerability is not weakness. It is the space where connection and change can occur. You cannot receive with clenched hands. You cannot recognize what is coming if your heart is closed before it arrives. I am not asking you to abandon wisdom. I am asking you to trust my guidance more than your anxiety. Fear tells you to close the door before anything can go wrong. I invite you to stand near it, attentive and calm, knowing you are not alone in what follows. You do not have to face disappointment alone if it comes, and you will not face blessing alone either. Remember this: fear speaks in absolutes. It says, if you hope, you will be hurt. It says, if you trust, you will regret it. I speak in truth. I say that even if things unfold differently than you imagine, you will not be abandoned. You will not be left to make sense of it alone. You will not lose yourself by trusting me. What is approaching is not fragile in the way your fear suggests. It does not require you to walk on eggshells or guard every step. It carries stability. It carries intention. And it comes with my presence, not my distance. You are not being led into uncertainty without support. You are being led into alignment with guidance. So when fear rises, do not fight it harshly. Acknowledge it. Thank it for trying to protect you. Then let it know that you are choosing trust anyway, Not blind trust, but grounded trust. Trust that you are not walking towards something random. Trust that you are not repeating the past. Trust that I am with you at the door, not watching from a distance. Breathe. You do not need to decide everything right now. You do not need to rush forward or pull back. Simply remain open. Courage does not always feel bold. It often feels quiet and steady. And that is enough. You are not being asked to conquer fear. You are being invited to move forward without letting fear decide the outcome. There are things happening that you cannot see, movements unfolding beyond the edges of your awareness. While you have been focused on getting through your days, on managing what is in front of you, conversations have been taking place that do not include you, but concern you. Decisions have been considered. Doors you didn't know existed have been opened quietly, without announcement. You assumed nothing was moving because nothing was visible. But visibility is not the measure of progress. Your name has been spoken in rooms you have never entered. Not casually, not accidentally, but intentionally. You did not campaign for it. You did not need to prove yourself. You were mentioned because alignment called for it. There are moments when I place someone on another person's heart, not to elevate them with praise, but to position them for purpose. That is what has been happening with you. You may find this difficult to believe because you have spent so much time feeling overlooked. You learned how to be self-reliant, how to stop expecting recognition, how to keep your head down and your hopes quiet. You told yourself that if something was meant for you, you would have to fight for it, chase it, or force it into existence. But there are times when striving would actually move you out of alignment. There are moments when stillness does more than effort ever could. While you were questioning your relevance, I was arranging relevance. While you were wondering if anyone remembered you, I was reminding others of you. Not in a way that inflated ego or created pressure, but in a way that made room. There is a difference between being noticed and being positioned. Being noticed fades quickly. Being positioned changes trajectory. You did not miss the opportunity because it was never yours to initiate. You were not late because timing was not dependent on your speed. The pieces that needed to align were outside your control, and that was intentional. I did not want you to feel responsible for carrying the weight of what comes next. I wanted you to arrive steady, not exhausted from forcing doors that were never meant to be pushed. You wonder how this could be happening without your awareness. You assume that if something significant were forming, you would feel it clearly, sense it strongly, or receive unmistakable confirmation. But some of the most important shifts begin quietly, protected from interference, shielded from doubt, until the right moment. If you had known too soon, fear might have disrupted what patience was completing. There are approvals that happen without your presence. There are yeses spoken without your request. There are alignments formed without your effort. This does not diminish your role. It honors it. It means you are being invited into something already prepared, not asked to create it from nothing. That is grace at work, not coincidence. You have been concerned that you were forgotten because no one reached out, no message arrived, no visible change occurred. But silence does not equal inactivity. It often means that what is forming requires discretion. Some things must be settled fully before they can be shared with you, because partial information would only create anxiety. I wanted you to meet this moment with peace, not confusion. When you hear about it, when the connection becomes visible, when the opportunity steps into your awareness, you may feel surprised, even unqualified. You may ask yourself, why now, why you, why this way? Remember this, timing reveals intention. If it arrives now, it is because you can carry it now. If it reaches you this way, it is because this path protects you. You are not being pulled into something uncertain. You are being drawn into something considered. Nothing about this is impulsive. Nothing about this is rushed. Every step has been measured against what you need, not just what you want. And what you need most right now is assurance that you are not alone in the unfolding. So do not assume you have been standing still while others moved ahead. You have been held in place while the ground was prepared beneath you. You have been kept steady while pathways were cleared. You have been protected from knowing too much too soon. That protection was love, not delay. Stay attentive, not anxious, attentive. There will come a moment when what has been hidden steps into view naturally, without strain. And when it does, you will realize that much more was happening than you ever imagined. Your role is not to chase what is forming. Your role is to recognize it when it arrives. What is moving toward you has already been discussed, considered, and approved. You are not late to the story. You are entering exactly where you were meant to. You keep thinking the surprise will arrive as something obvious, an answer you can point to, a result you can measure, a moment you can explain clearly to others. You imagine it will solve a specific problem, remove a particular burden, or instantly change a circumstance you've been carrying for a long time. But what is coming is deeper than a single outcome. It is not just an addition to your life. It is a shift within it, and shifts change how everything else is experienced. This surprise is not meant to overwhelm you. It is not designed to rush you into decisions or force you into action before you are ready. Instead, it arrives like a quiet realignment, something that settles into place and suddenly makes the weight you've been carrying feel different. Not gone immediately, but lighter, more manageable, more hopeful. You will notice that the way you think begins to change before anything around you does. What is coming alters direction more than it alters scenery. You may wake up one day and realize that what once felt confusing now feels clear, that what once felt heavy no longer controls you, that choices which used to drain you now feel natural. This is how transformation often begins, not with noise, but with peace, not with urgency, but with steadiness, not with certainty about the future, but with confidence about the next step. You have been focused on relief, and understandably so. You wanted something to fix what hurts, to resolve what has lingered too long. But I am giving you something that does more than fix. I am giving you perspective. Perspective does not erase difficulty, but it changes how you carry it. It gives you strength without hardening your heart. It gives you hope without making you careless. It gives you clarity without demanding perfection. This surprise touches areas of your life that have felt disconnected. It brings alignment between what you desire and what you are able to sustain. You have asked for change, but you have also feared what change might cost you. What is coming does not demand sacrifice that empties you. It invites growth that strengthens you. That is how you will recognize it. Do not underestimate the power of an internal shift. When your understanding changes, your reactions change. When your peace deepens, your decisions become wiser. When your fear loosens its grip, opportunities become visible that were always there but hidden by anxiety. This is why the surprise begins within. External change without internal grounding would only create instability. You may be tempted to overlook this moment because it does not feel dramatic enough. You may think, is this really it? Because you expected something louder, faster, more obvious. But listen to what settles in your spirit, not just what catches your attention. Some of the most profound changes announce themselves quietly because they are meant to last. This shift will affect how you move forward. You will find yourself less reactive, less desperate for answers, less driven by fear of missing out. You will begin to trust your discernment again. You will feel permission to pause without guilt and to act without panic. That balance is not accidental, it is part of the gift. What is coming also restores something you did not realize you lost. It may be confidence, or joy, or trust in your own ability to hear me. Over time, disappointment made you second-guess yourself. It taught you to doubt your instincts. This surprise gently returns that trust, not by erasing the past, but by showing you that you are wiser now than you were then. Do not rush to label what is happening. Do not force it into a category too quickly. Let it unfold. Let it settle. Let it reveal itself layer by layer. You do not need to understand everything immediately for it to be meaningful. Some truths deepen with time, not explanation. What is approaching does not arrive to impress you. It arrives to reorient you. And once that reorientation happens, you will notice that doors you were afraid of no longer feel threatening, and paths you avoided no longer feel impossible. The change begins subtly, but it does not stay small. Stay present. Stay receptive. This surprise is not meant to startle you into motion, but to steady you into alignment. And alignment changes everything that follows. I know there are memories you try not to linger on. The moments when you stood at a door before and nothing happened. Times when you waited, believed, hoped, and still watched the opportunity pass you by. You tell yourself you've moved on, that you've accepted it, but some part of you still carries the echo of that disappointment. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to make you cautious now. I see those moments clearly, even the ones you've tried to forget. You remember how it felt to prepare yourself emotionally, to imagine a different future, only to have that image quietly dissolve. You questioned what you did wrong. You wondered if you misunderstood me, if you heard incorrectly, if you trusted too much. Those experiences left marks, not to weaken you, but to deepen you. Still, I know how heavy it feels to carry memories that whisper, "Don't expect too much this time." There were doors you believed would open because you had prayed sincerely, waited patiently, done what you thought was right. When they stayed closed, you assumed it was because you weren't ready or worthy or chosen. But I want you to hear this clearly now. Those moments were not failures. They were not mistakes. They were not evidence that I ignored you. They were intersections you were spared from, not because you couldn't handle them, but because they would have required you to become someone you were never meant to be. Some paths close not because you lack faith, but because they would slowly erode it. Some opportunities look like answers, but would have cost you your peace, your integrity, or your sense of self. You could not see that then. All you could feel was loss. But loss does not always mean something was taken from you. Sometimes it means something was kept from harming you. I know how long it took you to recover from certain disappointments. I know how they reshaped your expectations, how they taught you to brace yourself before hoping. You learned how to say, "It's fine," even when it wasn't. You learned how to keep moving forward without letting yourself imagine too far ahead. That helped you survive. But survival is not the same as healing. This moment is different, not because you are more deserving now, but because you are more grounded. You are not standing at this threshold as the same person who stood at those earlier doors. You carry more wisdom now. You know yourself better. You recognize warning signs sooner. You are less impressed by appearances and more attentive to peace. That matters more than you realize. I am not asking you to forget the past. I am asking you to reinterpret it. Those closed doors taught you discernment. Those delays taught you patience without passivity. Those disappointments taught you how to keep your heart soft without leaving it unguarded. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Everything contributed to who you are now. You may still feel a twinge of sadness when you think about what didn't happen. That does not mean you lack faith. It means you loved deeply. But do not let old grief speak louder than present truth. You are not approaching this moment with the same vulnerability you once had. You are approaching it with awareness, and awareness changes everything. What is coming does not reopen old wounds, it closes them. Not by pretending the pain never happened, but by showing you why it didn't have the final word. You will begin to see how the paths that ended protected you from outcomes you would not have been able to carry then. You will recognize how each disappointment redirected you toward something more aligned, even if it took time to see it. So when old memories surface, do not push them away in fear. Let them remind you how far you've come. Let them confirm that you are stronger, wiser, and more anchored now. They are not signs to retreat. They are evidence that you are ready to move forward differently. This is not a repetition of the past. This is a continuation of growth. You are not standing before a door that leads to disappointment. You are standing before one that carries understanding. And understanding transforms waiting into peace. Stay present. The past no longer defines what is possible. It only explains how you were prepared. The moment will not announce itself the way you imagine. It will not arrive with dramatic signs or unmistakable certainty that forces you to stop everything at once. It will come quietly, woven into the fabric of an ordinary day. You may be in the middle of routine, thinking about responsibilities, moving through familiar hours, when something interrupts gently. Not with chaos, not with urgency, but with a subtle shift in awareness that makes you pause without knowing why. It may feel almost inconvenient at first. You might think, now isn't the right time, or this is unexpected, or even, this can wait. That hesitation is not wrong. It is simply unfamiliarity meeting significance. Some moments carry weight without noise. Some arrivals matter not because they demand attention, but because they change what follows once they are noticed. The knock will not be loud. It will not try to force its way in. It will respect your pace, your space, your readiness. That is how you will know it is safe. Anything meant to rush you, pressure you, or overwhelm you is not from me. What I send carries peace, even when it brings change. The moment will feel gentle, but it will linger in your thoughts longer than you expect. You may question whether it is truly important. You may wonder if you are reading too much into something simple. But there will be a quiet clarity beneath the uncertainty, a sense that something has shifted, even if you cannot yet explain what. That sense will not create anxiety, it will create stillness. And stillness is often where recognition begins. This arrival does not disrupt your life to prove its power. It integrates into it to reveal its purpose. You will notice that after it happens, you begin to see your circumstances differently. Not instantly transformed, but reframed. The same environment, the same challenges, but a different posture within you. That is the mark of something real. You may not realize in the moment that this is the turning point. Many turning points are only recognized in hindsight. You will look back and say, that was the day something began to change. Even though at the time it felt small, almost forgettable. But seeds do not announce themselves as forests. They settle quietly and begin their work unseen. Be careful not to dismiss the moment because it does not match your expectations. You have learned to look for answers that arrive with certainty, with immediate results, with visible proof. But some answers arrive as invitations rather than conclusions. They ask you to pay attention, to remain open, to allow unfolding instead of demanding clarity all at once. You will feel an inner nudge rather than an external push, a sense to listen more closely, to reflect before responding, to pray instead of rushing. That nudge is not hesitation, it is alignment forming. When something is meant to grow, it begins slowly so it can root deeply. This moment will not require you to abandon wisdom or discernment. It will not ask you to leap blindly. It will simply ask you not to ignore it, to acknowledge it, to hold it gently and allow understanding to come in its time. You are not being tested on speed. You are being invited into awareness. And even if you feel unsure afterward, even if you wonder whether it was significant at all, do not be discouraged. Recognition often comes in layers. What matters is that something within you noticed. That awareness is the beginning of movement. So when the interruption comes, do not rush to label it or dismiss it. Pause, breathe, listen, let it settle. You do not need to do anything immediately. You only need to remain open. This is how change often begins, not with force but with presence, not with certainty but with peace. And peace will guide you step by step, just as it always has. What happens next will not depend on perfection. It will not hinge on you saying the exact right words, making a flawless decision, or responding without hesitation. It will depend on willingness, the quiet choice to engage rather than withdraw, to consider rather than dismiss, to remain present instead of retreating into caution. This is not a moment that demands performance. It is a moment that invites participation. You may feel the impulse to step back, to give yourself time, to analyze every possible outcome before allowing yourself to respond. That instinct comes from a place of self-protection, and I understand it. You have learned that rushing can cost you, but there is a difference between wisdom and avoidance. Wisdom listens fully before acting. Avoidance listens just long enough to justify staying still. I am inviting you into wisdom, not pressure. Your response does not need to be loud or decisive. It can be as simple as staying open a little longer than you normally would, asking a question instead of shutting the door, sitting with the moment instead of immediately categorizing it as not for me. Sometimes the bravest response is not action, but attention. Attention creates space for clarity to grow. I know you are concerned about making the wrong choice. You worry that if you respond incorrectly, you might lose the opportunity altogether. But hear this. What is meant for you is not that fragile. It does not depend on one misstep or one imperfect reaction. You are not walking on a tightrope where a single mistake causes everything to fall apart. What is unfolding has margin. It allows for learning. It allows for questions. It allows for growth. You are also not being asked to carry this alone. You do not have to decide everything by yourself, in your own strength, with limited understanding. I am with you in the response, just as I am with you in the arrival. You can pause and pray. You can reflect. You can seek counsel. You can take time. None of that disqualifies you. Patience does not cancel opportunity when the opportunity is aligned. Be mindful of one thing. Fear will try to disguise itself as reason. It will offer you explanations for why now is not the right time, why you should wait indefinitely, why it's safer to do nothing at all. Fear always sounds logical because it has studied your past closely. But it only uses the information that supports staying where you are. It does not account for growth. It does not account for change. It does not account for me. Your response does not need to be immediate, but it does need to be honest. If you feel uncertain, acknowledge that without withdrawing completely. If you feel hesitant, allow yourself to move slowly rather than stopping altogether. I am not asking you to pretend confidence you do not feel. I am asking you to trust that clarity comes through engagement, not avoidance. There is a rhythm to how this unfolds. Arrival, awareness, response, growth. Each step builds on the last. You are not expected to jump to the end from the beginning. You are only asked to take the next honest step in front of you. That step might feel small, but small steps taken with integrity lead to lasting change. Do not let the weight of future possibilities silence present movement. You do not need to know where this leads to respond appropriately now. You only need to recognize that something meaningful is happening and choose not to turn away from it. Turning toward does not mean committing blindly. It means remaining engaged long enough for truth to surface. I am not watching to see if you get this right. I am walking with you as you learn how to respond differently than you did before. You are not being graded. You are being guided. The fact that you are even pausing to consider, to reflect, to listen, that already tells me something has shifted within you. So respond gently. Respond honestly. Respond without demanding certainty. What follows will unfold in step with your willingness, not your perfection. And you will not be rushed, abandoned, or left to figure it out alone. You do not need to prove your sincerity by suffering longer. You do not need to perfect yourself before allowing something good into your life. You do not need to resolve every flaw, heal every wound, or answer every doubt to be worthy of what is unfolding. Worthiness was never the requirement. Availability was. Shame has tried to convince you that receiving is dangerous because it exposes you. That if something good comes, it will reveal your imperfections, your fears, your unfinished places. But I am not surprised by your humanity. I have never required completeness before compassion. I meet you where you are, not where you think you should be. You may feel unqualified because you know your own struggles too well. You remember the prayers you abandoned, the moments you doubted, the times you felt distant. You assume those moments disqualified you quietly, but doubt did not remove you from my care. Fatigue did not erase your place. Even silence did not sever connection. You were never as far as you thought. What is coming does not rest on your performance. It rests on my faithfulness. And my faithfulness is not fragile. It does not withdraw when you hesitate. It does not collapse when you question. It does not retreat when you feel unsure. If it did, none of this would ever unfold. The fact that it is unfolding tells you everything you need to know. Receiving does not make you arrogant. It does not make you undeserving. It does not mean you are claiming something that belongs to someone else. It simply means you are accepting what has been prepared with intention. Refusing it out of shame does not honor humility. It reinforces a lie that you must withhold joy to remain acceptable. I am not asking you to ignore growth or responsibility. What is coming carries purpose, and purpose always invites stewardship. But stewardship begins after receiving, not before. You cannot nurture what you refuse to accept. You cannot grow what you never allow into your hands. You may still feel a quiet discomfort as things begin to align. That discomfort is not a warning, it is unfamiliarity. You have spent so long managing disappointment that peace feels strange. You have become fluent in waiting, but inexperienced in receiving. Give yourself permission to learn this new posture without self-judgment. Do not shrink when good approaches. Do not apologize internally for being seen, helped, or chosen. You are not taking more than your share. You are stepping into what has been prepared with care. Grace does not diminish when you receive it, it multiplies. So when the voice of unworthiness rises, do not argue with it harshly. Simply let truth answer gently. You are not here because you earned your place. You are here because you were invited, and invitations are not extended by accident. Stay open. Stay grounded. You do not need to qualify yourself for what is coming. You only need to receive it with honesty and care. What unfolds next will not expose your flaws. It will confirm that grace has been carrying you all along.